Okay, here's what we're going to have to look at on these stones. Now, there's going to be transition areas, and this is a giant foot or something like this. Now, this is the fleshy area. You've seen the giant hand and so forth, and it showed the fleshy area, and then it went into the tendons and so forth. Well, that's the same sort of stuff, and you see as it transitions in, and then there's going to be this sort of effect, and then it'll go into the fleshy area. And these, I believe, are where the fleshy tissue is between tendons, and it's eroded away. Things to look at close, and see these colors. Those, you're going to see little tiny blood vessels there, and a blood vessel, not, you won't see this every time, but in what they call foramen, there's two holes. You'll see a hole in there, and if you look inside of that hole, you'll see two little holes, one side by side, and one of them will be the vein and one of them will be the artery, and that's what supplies these bones with their blood. And one of them will be they'll be different. They'll look different because one of them has been purged because it's the artery side and has no clamps in it, and the other side is the vein side and preserves the blood inside there. Now, if later in its life it comes in contact with acids, it will normally leach that blood right out of there because it's sequestered under these little. They wrap around the metals, which are the bloods and so forth. Anyway, that's what I want you to look for. These holes, there's all over the place. Every bone is supplied with blood in many different places. And if you can find these holes, and they're all over, I can see them, and inside those holes you'll see these two little holes. And I'm going to show you some close-ups that make it very apparent what you're looking for. Okay, this is one of these blood foramens, bone foramens. And this would have been the outside of the bone, which has now mineralized, but there's still a lot of features in it that you can see, and that is the cavity that these bone foramens make, and inside of them there's a vein and an artery, and this one has that, and they rehydrate the blood once they get washed up and cleaned up and put in a little bit of an acid solution, I believe, is what triggers this, because the blood specifically become sequestered. There's a bunch of reasons for this, but transitional metals form bonds around them, and they literally encapsulate them, and that's what happens with the blood. Now, you will not see this, obviously. You're not going to see these blood scabs. What you're going to see is all of this stuff will have turned white from being exposed over the course of I don't know how long, and whatever ran out of these will have turned into that looking rust color, that little yellowy looking stuff that running down from these holes, and you're going to see them all over. So look inside these holes, and normally you're going to see two little blood spots for two holes that'll be in there, and those are the supplies. All right, this is that same blood foramen. A bone foramen, and that is the bone foramen. And remember, there was that big red scab was there. Those are the two holes. You see them? Those are the two holes. One of them is the vein side, and one of them is the artery side. And the black one right there, I'm sure, is the vein side, and that's the one that leaks back out. And that's the artery side, and they will always have less blood in the artery side because the artery side purges because it doesn't have any clamps. Now, this is also blood that turns blackish. You see it running around here? I don't know if you can see all that, but anyway, that's what you're going to be looking for, is these little tiny holes, and there'll be two of them. They'll be bigger, obviously, the thing you're looking at. These things are kind of small. So anyway, that's what you're going to be looking for, and the surface you're going to be looking for is that textured surface. I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, because these are weathered rocks instead of the ones that I just showed you, or the real wet mud ones that came directly out of the mud. These have been out and weathered. You see them? These are like you're going to see at Stonehenge. You see it? That this says leeches and leachins, or whatever they call it, lichen. Anyway, this still has a texture to it. it looks like just stone, but it's not. When you look at this closely, if you have a magnifying glass, you're going to see that there's all these fibers in there. And I'm going to show you that in a magnifying glass. Alright, at Stonehenge, what you're going to see is more of a texture like this. But if you look carefully, these little white fibers, there's little white fibers everywhere. And those are what's called kerogens and keratins. And those are the things that are the fabric, really, that wraps your body. And they used to call it the tunica. Anyway, that is the fascia. It makes up the fascia that wraps every single organ, every single muscle, every fiber of your muscles. It's fascias throughout your entire body. It's a complete network, and it's just recently been started to be looked at within the last year or two. Anyway, and that is the protective agent, and that's why I've been studying it, because it is the protective agent of these mud fossils. And I'm going to show you how other ones are protected and the type of fascia you'll see on lungs and so forth. Alright, that's a human lung, a DNA tested human lung right here. Now I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit, and you're going to see the same sort of texture that you were seeing before. You see these little white fibers looking things all over the place? That's fascia, and that is the fibers and the kerogens and the keratins. And this part here, if you can see, it has that red texture to it. Well, that is what they call, well, that's what I call a facial investment. And that is on the corner of the lungs. It locks the lung in place. And that is the kind of stuff that weathers away, and you're going to see around the earth in geological formations, because they don't only come this small, they come very, very large. And I have them here very, very large. So anyway, that is what you're going to be looking for. This kind of texture. I mean, it's obvious. I can see it anyway from the Stonehenge interactive video there. The stuff is there. What we're looking for is maybe if you can get some samples. I don't know if they allow that, but if you can have that, get a little scraping here and there. You're looking for the black stuff, which is going to be blood. And there'll be certain areas where it'll be obvious, and there'll be other areas, well, who knows, it could be paint or whatnot. But where you saw the things that I showed you where to look. And these are weathered rocks. It's going to be a little different from the mud ones that I showed you. They're going to be more like that big thing over here, that type. You know, I have a lot of those too. But see what you can find out. All right, thanks, buddy. Alright, these are particularly interesting. These are blood holes. Those are the arterial explosion holes from something. And, you know, you saw them in the big fingertips that I have, but they're nothing the size of these. This is from a very, very large giant from somewhere. But those are arterial vascular holes. And they should be looked at closely. Those are important. Alright, things like this here down at the bottom, that little orange looking stuff. When you see that, they'll be coming out of a hole normally, and that is the blood that's running out from like a you know, like a, normally they're from bone foramen, but they're not bone broken. A broken bone creates a black stuff. This thing here is interesting. What that is about, I don't know. I can't see it well at all. I'd like to see it, but something's going on with that. I'd like to see that one. Anything that looks unusual is interesting. You know, look at the cuts, because those are normally going to be, and this one here, these are the bones. That is exactly what I see in my big fingers there. They have one here and one here, and this would have been the ligament. And you might even be able to see it. Ligaments are wavy. They just wave just like a snake. There's a lot to look at here, buddy. But this is all, everything here was alive and breathing oxygen and walking around and consuming something at one point in time. Believe it or not. I mean, it's hard to believe, but it's perfectly factually obvious and provable. So anywhere where you see a transition like this here, it's just obvious between the pad of the foot and the other tissue of the foot, that type of thing. You'll see here and there, obviously there's going to be more of them. I can't tell. Now, what I'd like to see is what's on the other side of these things that have, there's other places that have some crazy things. But anyway, I've got to get this to you because I know you're on the way. And I don't think you can get to the heel stone. All right. Good luck, my friend. Thank you.